let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. But fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. Hey, so take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where I am, come from.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Let me get this just turned off here real quick. We are there, and I'm getting back to you here, and welcome everybody to another listing specialist where we get to sit back and listen to these agents that are doing this incredibly well. And I'm excited today, truly excited today to be joined by Bill Cox. And Bill, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed just getting to know you over the last several months that we've been here amidst COVID and everything else, but just the love and admiration that literally everybody in this office has for you. I thank you for taking time to spend some time with us today. So thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure. You're way too kind.
You say that, but listen, here's what you don't understand. When it's just Bill and I in the hallway, he's like, you need to be nicer to me. So no, I'm just kidding. So it's good though. So, hey, Bill, just again, we're here today to kind of learn how you've done the business, how you've been as successful as you are in your business and that. Why don't we start off today, and just so everybody knows, again, Bill and I are just going to be talking here. If you have any questions, if Bill says something or if I say something and you're like, I got a question on this, go ahead and type it in the question and answers, and we'll get that, and I'll make sure that I ask Bill those questions as well. So, but Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit, how long have you been in the real estate business?
It was 27 years this past March.
27 years this past March. And obviously not all those years have been with Keller Williams, right?
No, I started out at Lake Taps Realty, which became a John L. Scott franchise. I was there for 3 or 4 years. I got recruited to run a title and escrow company in Florida, which I did for a couple of years. Came back to Seattle, went to work for Windermere in Burien in about 2001. 2004, they asked me to be the designated broker manager for their Auburn office, which I did for about 6 or 7 years. Met this woman named Pam Ranch, who started introducing me to the wonders of Keller Williams, and I'd like to tell you that I was smart enough to have paid attention, but I didn't for 4 or 5 years. I enjoyed the relationship. I just didn't see the reason to change until I opened my mind a little bit. And my business partner, Julianne Gibson, and I came to Keller Williams after going to a family reunion in Phoenix, and we promised each other before we left we were not drinking any of that damn Kool-Aid, and
sure.
Looked at each other within about 30 minutes and said, wow, Kool-Aid's pretty good. We've been here for the last 6+ years.
That is fantastic. And I'm so glad you made that move. I know for me it was it was literally going to a family reunion at Disneyland, right? It was in Anaheim a few years back, and I told myself the same thing, man. I'm not gonna get in all the hoopla and everything else, but yeah, here I am, and it has been fantastic for me personally, and for my family. So that's fantastic. So what have you seen in those 27 years that you've had? What have you seen be the biggest change in the industry since you started until now?
Probably a couple things. One is the technology. Back in those days, we were working with pagers,
Yeah.
fax, and ultimately a cell phone became a real big deal. The technology just in communication has changed just dramatically. The other part of the technological change, I mean, today we're dealing with things like Command and Kelly and Fabulous Systems. In those days, having started at Lake Tapps Realty, which is located in Bonnie Lake, we were right on the edge of King and Pierce counties. And at that time, there were two separate MLSs.
Gotcha.
You had separate MLS information. And in those days, it was not online. There was no such thing as the internet. Fundamentally, it was a phone book that came out, and you got a phone book for all the inventory for King County, another one for Pierce County.
Wow.
And typically, because of the lead time in presenting the information, getting it printed, by the time you got the book, it was mostly out of date anyway.
Really? Okay. Wow.
So today, the instant access to good information and the instant ability to communicate and conduct business is huge. I can remember driving from Puyallup to Everett one night at about 11:30 to get one initial on a document. That's kind
Wow.
of how things went those days. The other part of the thing that's changed, in my estimation, is the legal side of things. When I started,
Okay.
it was like you could do a real estate deal on the back of a cocktail napkin on a hood of somebody's car.
Yeah.
These days, it's not uncommon for, say, a new construction contract to be somewhere between 40 and 70 pages long.
Yeah.
It's a dramatic departure. There's a new form every time an issue comes up or a lawsuit occurs, where an issue becomes prevalent enough that it's affecting more than half a dozen people. We wind up with a new form.
Wow.
There's
Yeah.
a whole lot more to doing business than there used to be.
Yeah. So you've had to adapt.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
or die.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you are not doing that. So it's all good, right? So when you look at your business, has it always been, I mean, when you started 27 years ago, right? Did your business look the same way that it does now?
To a degree, yes. I started out with the commitment that I was going to be a listing agent, not a buyer's agent. And I focused on that almost exclusively. And as a result, it took me several months before I actually got much business going. I also had the benefit at the time of being married, and my wife had been a Windermere agent for about 3 years and did extremely well. So I had a 24/7 mentor, which made a huge difference. And
Sure.
I've had a number of advantages that perhaps other people just can't duplicate. And it's not very helpful, I know, but that's my story.
No, but it's good. So why did you decide to focus on listings instead of buyers?
Because that's where the leverage is. That's where the market tends to be. And certainly it's never been more true than today. For every property that comes on the market, there's probably about 10 buyers. And so as the listing agent, yes, you're doing about 10 times as much work because you have 10 offers instead of one, but there's always only going to be one winner on the buyer side. So you've got one agent that's successful and 9 that are walking away with their tail between their legs. So
Sure.
the other part of listing is that it generally gives you way more control over your life. You can coordinate that around your schedule and the seller's schedule, whereas, for example, in today's environment, if you've got a buyer, something comes on the market, if you don't go out and deal with it right now, it's going to be gone.
Yeah. I mean, within
A lot more
hours.
control, a lot more leverage.
Yeah. Okay. So very good. So now do you not work with buyers at all, or what's the balance between sellers and buyers for you?
Well, I have a business partner, as I said, Julianne Gibson, who used to be here at this office and is now still with Keller Williams at the Tacoma office.
Yeah.
And our business in general is a lot more balanced, but for me personally, I'm almost exclusively on the listing side. I have kept one of the agents who left the business in about 2012 that used to work for me at Windermere referred me to a gentleman who's a vascular surgeon from Taiwan. He wanted to
Wow.
become a real estate investor. And since that time, he and I have done about 25 deals together. So he was one I chose to keep.
There you
I
go.
will do a few buyers now and then if it's some special reason, but most of my buying activity goes to the buyer's agents on our team.
Very good. Very good. Now, did you guys always start as a team or as a partnership, or was it just you kind of solo with your wife?
Um, no, Rosemary and I started together as a team and did that very successfully for a number of years. And then she actually got out of real estate.
Okay.
And when I went to Windermere office as the designated broker manager, my business tapered off quite a bit. I didn't do a whole lot. I had an assistant that took care of most of it for me, but my business kind of took a back seat to being the DB for the office.
Gotcha. Yes. Perfect. Okay. So nowadays, knowing where business is nowadays, and you focus primarily on listings and that, how do you go about, or where do you find your sellers?
For the most part, it's a lot easier after 27 years than it was
Sure.
27 years ago. Most of my business comes from my database. I get a lot of referrals from the database, my general sphere of influence, a lot from affiliates such as lenders, escrow companies, and inspector. I will say one of the best things I ever did was to join meetup.com. For those that might not be familiar with that, it's an organization or an app, if you will, that was created after September 11th to help communities come together, help people deal with the aftermath of that disaster. And I joined a hiking group here in Seattle, and it doesn't have to be a hiking group, but I also became one of the organizers of the hiking group, and within that have kind of become the realtor for that group. And I calculated a couple of months ago, I've got a deal going now with one of the gals from the group. We got another one coming up in the fall, but I calculated about 3 or 4 months ago that so far that group alone has given me over $200,000 in gross commission income.
Pretty amazing, isn't it?
Getting yourself out there and developing a reputation as someone who does good business with like-minded people is a great thing. And whether it's joining Rotary or a meetup group where you hike and drink beer, whatever works for you. But that's primarily where my business has come from.
That's beautiful. So how has that been impacted with obviously the pandemic of COVID and everything else that we've been going on? How have you kept that business or that aspect of getting those people in?
Well, it's a little tough, particularly because the hiking group, for example, we're really not hiking or haven't done a whole lot. There was quite a while there where you really couldn't. Now it's gotten more difficult, and a lot of people are somewhat skittish about being out amongst other people.
Sure.
For the most part, all I have done is continue to stay in touch with people, particularly, the coronavirus gave you a great excuse to reconnect with people. And I will tell you that, having done business for 27 years, there's a whole lot of people, and it doesn't have to go back 27 years, it could go back just a few years, where I have not been as good as I should have been about staying in touch with my database.
Sure.
And so the coronavirus was a great excuse to dive back in and get in touch with your database and make sure that they know I'm still here, make sure they know about the things that we could do to help them out, whether it's real estate related or not. That's my business partner, Julianne, started a company called Real Estate 55 Plus, and we're affiliated with some other organizations. So we provide lots of tools and resources for seniors, and it's not just real estate. So we have an opportunity to be of value to people by virtue of the Real Estate 55 Plus. It doesn't have anything to do with real estate, and it sometimes makes that process of what you would call prospecting easier because you have a lot of value you can bring. It's not just about asking them for your business, it's helping them out in lots of other fashions. We've got 70 some different platforms that we can help them with
Wow.
Resources that they can count on to be trustworthy and knowledgeable, and also in many cases even provide them with a discount.
That's beautiful. So you articulate your value really from contribution is what you're saying.
Yeah. And I guess I have another benefit from having done this for quite a while, and that is that mostly I don't need to articulate my value, because if the business is coming from either your past clients or people who are referring you, the message that they send to people from a third party perspective is far more important and beneficial and powerful than me telling people how cool I think I am.
Sure, right. Well, it's always right. Reputation isn't necessarily built by what we say, but by what others say about us,
And
right?
our mission has always been to end a transaction with people being so happy that they can't help but go out and talk about what we did for them and share that experience, their successes with whoever they come in contact with that has a
Yeah,
need.
that's awesome, Bill. That's awesome. What would you say if you were to say anything at all about it? What would you say is what is Bill Cox's secret sauce?
I don't have any secrets. It's mostly the same stuff that everybody else is doing that is succeeding. But I've got a number of thoughts there. A lot of this is stuff that I teach in Ignite.
Yeah.
The first thing is, to me, decide what kind of realtor you want to be. And I'm not talking about, do you want to be a listing broker or a selling broker or showing agent or whatever, but it's more about, what are you going to stand for? How do you want to be perceived in the marketplace? There's a lot of people who, if you do a cross sale with them, their mission is to do as little as possible and let you do all the work.
Okay.
There's a lot of other people who, for example, I think the worst case I've ever had was 27 offers on a single listing.
Wow.
There are people who, when you get in a situation like that, as a listing broker, want to kind of come off as, I'm God, I have the inventory, I've got the stuff, and you're just one of
Yeah.
my minions. And I think the way you treat people and the way you develop a reputation will either help make you money, or, my theory has been to act in a fashion so that when somebody sees my name on a purchase and sale agreement on one of their listings, they say, that's the guy I want to work with. We'll take care of the details and make that come out on top, but that's the kind of guy that I want to work with. And that has paid off extremely well.
How do you go how do you go about building relationships with other agents like that? So when they see your name, they know that you stand out. So you put in 12, you're one of 12 offers. How does your name stand out above everybody else?
Well, it helps to have been around for a long time.
Okay.
But the other part of it is that, and I'm probably going to offend some people here, but a lot of particularly younger people want to do everything by text.
Okay.
I will tell you that in that case where we had 27 offers, there were probably only 7 of the agents involved who picked up the phone, called me and said, tell me what's going on with the property. Tell me what's important to your sellers. Tell me what's important to you. How do you want to do business? And that, to me, is absolutely critical. If you start by developing a reputation, I've got a buyer that I've been working with that was a young couple that was referred to me by a lender friend of mine. And we made an offer last week. They have a particular property or a neighborhood in Graham that they want to be in. This is kind of like their dream neighborhood, called Grand Firs. And we made a quick offer on a property, and lo and behold, the gal happens to be from John L. Scott Lake Taps, which is
Okay.
essentially where I started. So I
Yeah.
could talk to her. I'd never met her before, but I talked to her about all the other agents that I know there, and just doing whatever you can to find some common ground and develop a relationship. I can't tell you how many times on the listings that I have, I never get a phone call from anybody. I get an email sent to me with just no conversation whatsoever, just here it is.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just plain foolish. It's suicide. Develop that relationship, figure out what it is that they want, what's going to make this work for them, not just, here's my offer.
Yeah. Well, if I was coming in as a buyer's agent and you were the listing agent, I think I would want to make an attempt even before I send the offer over, right? To
Absolutely.
start building rapport with you, start, building relationship. I would hope before I even sent the offer, by the time you got the offer, that you and I have spoken at least 4 times, right?
Absolutely, and it should start before you even go out and show the property.
Okay.
Call and find out, is it still available? Because in today's environment, very often it's not, and you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Secondly, what can you tell me about the property that is not necessarily obvious in the listing. And, there's only 500 characters in the marketing remarks. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff that they can't tell you, don't have room for, or that they don't want to put into a listing.
Sure.
Sometimes they'll take you aside and whisper in your ear and tell you that the place is kind of a dump, or
Yeah.
the place next door is a dump. Those are the
Okay.
kinds of things you can do. I mean, it gives you a reason to start that conversation. It also gives you a leg up on the other people who aren't taking that step.
Perfect. That's perfect. So even doing that as a listing agent, right? So when you start to get those calls, that's how you're building a relationship with the buyer's agents, so that when they list, you have a foot in as well.
Well, the other part of it to me is make it easy for a selling broker to sell your property. One of the things we do that I bet not more than 10% of the agents do is we put captions under each photograph. Yeah, it takes time. It takes a little bit of effort, but there's only 500 characters in that marketing remarks, and it's often not enough. Sometimes you'll see a room or a photograph. You can't even tell what it is. I can remember not long ago showing 20-acre properties to a couple from Texas, and I can't tell you how many of them we showed didn't even have a map of what the property looked like, or where the
Sure.
property lines were. You see the same thing in condos. We started doing what we call the condo FAQ. There's a lot of things about condos that don't really work in the MLS, such as rules on pets, rules on rental. Is there a cap?
Sure.
Those kinds of things. Instead of taking, basically what most people do is they list the condo, take that information, put it into the MLS, and it's fairly limited. Then they start getting phone calls from people. Basically, we don't get the phone calls for the most part because we've got this FAQ document that's been prepared that anticipates their questions and answers them up front. Again, it's a matter of make it easy for somebody to buy your property. And again, that creates that perception or a reputation of they've got their act together. That's who I want to do business with.
That's awesome. Bill, that's so good. Melinda Berg actually had a question here before we kind of get on to our next questions. But when you're on the buy side, do you have problems getting agents to pick up the phone on the other side? So do you have a problem with agents not picking up their phones now?
I guess I don't do enough of it that it has occurred to me that it is a problem. There are some times that that's the case. And yesterday, for example, I had to do a showing. I made made an appointment, and it got declined in a heartbeat. And the listing I was looking at it said it was active. So I called the agent.
Yeah.
And after a couple tries, got him to answer the phone. He said, "No, it's pending." I said, "Well, no, it's not, because I'm looking at it right now." Obviously, there's going to be people who don't want to pick up the phone, and it means I have to send them a text. But I guess that's the fundamental message that I want to impart here is it's not about how I want to do business. A lot of people are mostly wanting to do it by text.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't necessarily work for everybody. If I call people and that doesn't work, I will send them a text or send them an email. Do whatever it takes to figure out how best to communicate with them, not make the world revolve around you and your methods.
Gotcha. So if you could share one action step for us, right, to begin to get more listings, what would that one action step be? What's that one thing that as agents we should be doing to get more listings?
Probably the one thing that I can think of is find yourself a niche or a specialty. As I said, Julianne Gibson created Real Estate 55 Plus in about 2013, and that's how we got connected. And we've gravitated mostly toward, probably 65% or 75% of our business is with seniors. Admittedly, I'll be 70 years old here pretty soon, and that makes me a senior. So, and clearly a lot of my database or sphere of influence is going to be about the same age. So it's easier for me to do that. But, take the example of the hiking group. Find something where you can have a niche and be different than everybody else. One of the things that I see is a lot of people trying to be all things to all people.
Gotcha.
And some of the worst situations, for example, I do a lot with this investor on multifamily properties, and you get people who clearly have no clue what they're doing with a multifamily listing. They get an opportunity to make a buck and they take it.
Sure.
They do a horrible job, do a disservice to the client, and for example, are grossly in error on calculating cap rates and things like that.
Yeah.
In my estimation, it would be a whole lot smarter for people like that to find an agent who knows what they're doing. I think of this, a lot of people say, well, geez, I don't want to give up my commission. Well, you're better off having 50% of a commission that gets money in your pocket than 100% of nothing.
Yeah.
The other part of it is, to me, it's just like paying tuition. If you go out and learn how to do it properly from somebody who already knows, you're likely to be a whole lot more capable in the future than going out there and taking a listing and screwing it up. The other part of it, to me, has to do with the commitment we have under the law to provide the same level of service that an attorney would,
Right.
same standard of care. Well, you don't see a divorce attorney taking on, say, a corporate merger for a client. Same thing here. If you don't know anything about a condo, or if you don't know anything about vacant land or a multifamily property, refer it to somebody. You can refer it out entirely, or better yet, co-list with somebody who can help teach you. And obviously you have to pick someone who is actually going to teach you, not just do it, because it's a lot more work for them to do it.
Right.
For them to do it themselves is easy. For them to teach you how to do it is a lot more work. So you're probably going to have to pay a pretty hefty referral fee or a co-list fee.
Sure.
But you're still better off. You're learning something. You're developing a reputation as somebody who does know their stuff, not going out there and stubbing your toe and really doing a disservice to the client and to yourself and to the company.
Well, if you went to try to do something that you didn't know on your own and tried to fake it, right? The client's going to find out. And that's just going to burn the relationship, because the client's not just about the transaction there. It's about, like you said, the hiking club has been $200,000 of GCI to you, right? And that's referral business. One client is worth so much more than just the deal that's right in front of you at the time.
Absolutely. And I don't run around in the hiking group and say, oh, by the way, I'm a realtor. In most cases, when there's new people in the group, they hear it from somebody else.
Yeah.
I have done a couple things. A year ago in July, I had the best year I'd ever had. And so I was out on a hike. And so typically after a hike, we go out and have a beer and a bite to eat. So I bought one night just quietly, got the waitress aside and said, this one's on me. And turned out that about 6 of the 8 people on the hike were clients anyway. So it wasn't like I was doing a lot of new prospecting, but
right.
You can do things subtly, but if you do things right and you do it long enough, we'll find those other people singing your praises, and you don't have to.
That's beautiful, Bill. It is. I love who you are, your integrity as a person in that. What I'm going to do at this time, because we're running out of time here, but I'm going to turn it over for questions. If anybody has any questions, in fact, Robin Adelsman put in there, not a question, but just a little bit of something is better than a lot of nothing, right?
Absolutely. That was the point I was trying to make about getting something that works. And frankly, going out and taking one of those listings when you are not qualified is likely to do you more harm. You're likely to wind up with less than what you would have had you just referred it out entirely.
Perfect. That's beautiful. So does anybody have any questions, or are there any questions that I should have asked Bill that I didn't ask? So I'll let you go put those in the questions and answers or the comments. And if nobody has any questions or answers, we'll give them a little bit of time here to ask those. But
I've got one more thing that I want to share, Bill.
Please do.
And this is one of the things I always start my Ignite classes with, but particularly as new people, very often you don't have the experience, you don't have the confidence, so you go into a listing appointment, for example, and you do what a friend of mine, Steve Shapiro, wrote a great book called Listening for Success. Here's a guy who studied listening for 20-some years. He wrote a book that was a bestseller. He taught all over the world about listening. You wouldn't think there's much to learn about listening. But fundamentally, he said what most people do is they'll go out and do the spray and pray method. Spray or do what he calls product vomit on people about, here's all the stuff that I do, here's how cool I am. And he said that's the wrong approach. Basically, if you were to walk into a situation like that, instead of having your fancy tools and your gimmicks and your techniques and your scripts, sit down and learn to ask really good questions, find out what's really important to them and their family. It's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah.
The more you can do that and teach people that you are there for them, as opposed to I'm here to fleece you out of your business by my cool techniques, It just works a whole lot better. And whether it's real estate or whether it's your relationship with your kids, your significant other, your siblings, your parents, or whatever, asking questions and listening is just hugely key to success in any aspect of life.
I can't agree more. It's honestly how every listing I've gotten, I have my presentation, I've got that, but it ends up being more just talking and asking questions.
Mhm.
And they're like, I want to go with you. A lot of times I don't even get to the listing presentation, right? They're like, because it's just, they know that I'm there for them.
It's
So
about the relationship. It's not about the transaction.
there you go. That is so good. So, well, Bill, it looks like we answered everybody's questions because they don't have any questions.
Perfect.
But
You're
I
off the
just,
hook.
yes, but listen, I know where you're at in your career. I know the goals that you have coming up here in the future and stuff like that. I just want to thank you very, very much for taking time out of your day to be so generous with your time to come spend a half an hour with us. It means the world to me. So thank you very much, Bill. And from
My
everybody.
pleasure, and best of luck. If I can help anybody, feel free to let me know.
Okay. All right. And they can get you. So, and by the way, Bill Allison, Bill Cox. So sometimes we get each other's emails. So just, yeah.
I used to be
Just
the only Bill here. You know, it was nice and easy.
Sorry, I ruined that for you. So,
Yeah.
all right, my friend. Hey, you
All
have
right.
a blessed day. We'll talk to you
You
soon.
too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.